Hello, everybody. I was just recently thinking yesterday about what my role is, like what is one of my psychological purposes. Maybe not in my life, but at this point in my life, I guess. A couple years ago, well, actually, like 10 years ago, many years ago, this one couple told me that my purpose was actually to try to be like this person that brings balance to things. So, like if I see that everyone's saying black, I would say white. If I see that everyone's saying night, I say day, right? So it's kind of like an attempt to bring balance. But another thing that I'm recently starting to think that it's kind of like my objective in life, I guess, is to make people like aware of things, and maybe not aware in terms of like, oh, environmental awareness or that type of stuff, but just like you could even say that it's maybe like stuff that doesn't really affect anything but are just things that people do, and they're kind of weird, right? But the thing about these things is that they're done without any type of thought anymore, right? Without any type of reflection. And a lot of these things are actually like tradition, they're embedded in us, right? They say that they kind of become, like propaganda. Like it becomes like part of the background, right? Like Coca-Cola with Christmas and Santa Claus. Like it's just something that's already there, but you're not aware that that Coca-Cola is a corporation, and you're giving a lot of money to this corporation because it's fed the idea through marketing, right? That Coca-Cola is for family times, it's for happiness, all this stuff. Which, I have an idea there too, that like the Nazis in Germany, they started doing propaganda, and then like the whole world started copying the Nazis because they saw how effective propaganda is, right? So they say that's part of what the cliches are, right? Like if you say, oh, that's a cliche, I've seen that already, and then eventually after seeing it so many times, it just becomes part of the background, right? But there is a corporation with interest, right there, and you're feeding that, right? So my idea, or my intention, I guess, to a certain extent, I haven't really developed this idea, but it could be that I'm just basically making people aware. Sometimes it may even be uncomfortably aware of things, right? So now it's like, I think about that phrase, bliss is ignorance is bliss, because if you don't know, then you're happy, but when you know, it's kind of like, like now I notice that, and that's kind of part of becoming an adult, right? When you're a kid, when you're a teenager, you don't notice a lot of things, but then as you become older, that's probably why old people are really grouchy and grumpy, because they see a lot of things. A teenager's like, yeah, let's go out for the weekend, let's go on a vacation trip, whatever. And then as an adult, or as a grumpy old person, you're like, oh, I have to wait in lines, and I have to see people interact with them, and all these type of things, and then problems, and so you become more aware of things, I guess, or I don't know, the bad things. But anyway, in this video, I'm going to be talking about cultural ritualism. A lot of things that we do that we're not aware why we do them, and this again goes in line with the idea of thinking of ourselves as these like very scientifically driven people, all right? Like mankind, like we're very objective. We only work with facts and evidence and things like that. It's like, no, you don't. We're super superstitious. We're super symbolic. Like we do a lot of things just because tradition dictates that's how things should be done, right? We're very ritualistic, even though we try to appear as this like very innovative, or however they start pronouncing innovative, creative, dynamic society, right? That's constantly changing, when we really have a lot of deep-rooted, deep-seated issues. So anyway, what I'm going to be talking about specifically is residual superstition, or cultural ritualism. I asked ChatGPT, I gave him the idea that I had, and I have a lot of moments like these. Like I was just sitting there, someone sneezes, and they say, bless you. And it's like, it's a very normal thing. Again, it's in the background. It's something that's in the background. But you know, when you take something out of the background and you really analyze it, and you're like, why do we say bless you? Why is it necessary, right? Why is it almost like, you know, walking under ladders, or a black cat crossing our paths, right? Very superstitious things. And I've talked on this before too, superstitions. I think I made some videos regarding these topics, but I thought I'd talk more in terms of background things, like things that are really, really hard to spot, right? Like this bless you thing. Excuse me. So these are behaviors and beliefs that originate in superstition or old tradition, but they persist today. And I asked ChatGPT, like I consulted this with ChatGPT, and it gave me some ideas. And these traditions, or basically these behaviors and beliefs that we still do today, you know, originally in superstition and traditions, they persist today. They're often detached from their context or their original meaning. So these are practices that people follow just because, and they do so without necessarily believing in the original rationale behind them, right? So they're just doing things like, you know, dumbly, like without any thought. Like these are just things that people do, right? Especially in social context, people will do these things just because. So my first idea was this bless you thing. So someone sneezes and you have to say bless you. You can't, you know, like the first thing is that you seem rude if you don't. And it's like, what? Like really think about that. Why would it be rude? I can understand it being rude if you don't hold the door open for somebody, because that's like a physical thing, right? A barrier. You're being rude, like hold the door. Or if someone gives you something, you know, if you don't ask with please, or when you receive it, if you don't say thank you. I understand those, even though that may be background stuff too. But at least to my level, you know, of cognition or whatever, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense, because you're acknowledging things, and we have this necessity, this psychological need for people to acknowledge and to reciprocate. And you know, it's just our nature, right? Unless our nature is off, or it's not really our nature. But when someone sneezes, you know, and people say bless you, I'm like, why is that necessary? That doesn't really do anything, right? And I knew this was from like an ancient belief that whenever someone would sneeze, it's like their soul would go out of their body. So, you know, they would say bless you, like kind of like, you know, or like in Spanish they say salud. So they're trying to keep you healthy and alive by saying that, right? But I thought we were scientifically driven, you know, as a society. But these are like superstitions, you know, and it's considered rude not to say it. But if you really think about it, there's no practical reason why you should say it, why people should say bless you when someone sneezes, right? Okay, so it says it stems from ancient beliefs such as the soul being vulnerable during a sneeze, or sneezing being a sign of illness, right? Like for instance with the plague. So you know, in this case, when someone says bless you, that's basically a wish for health or divine protection. And people still do this. Everybody does this, right? And over time it has become a social norm rather than a belief in those superstitions. Other types of residual superstitions or cultural rituals, of course, are knocking on wood, crossing your fingers for good luck, right? Throwing salt over your shoulder, avoiding walking under the ladder. I didn't know this, but the ladder thing is actually because it's like the Trinity. So you're trying to avoid something having to do with the Trinity. Breaking a mirror, right? Which brings 7 years of bad luck. Wishing on a shooting star but that's like a positive superstition, right? Like it's, you know, I see a shooting star and I say a wish and it will come true. Not opening umbrellas indoors, right? So if you open an umbrella indoor, that's like bad luck. Black cats, and just in general, all these things that have to do with bad luck. But I'm not here to talk about those things because those are very obvious. I'm going to be talking about 10 things that are not so obvious, but that are actually there. All right. Now, the first one is birthday candles and wishes, right? So, blowing out candles on a birthday cake and making wishes ties back to ancient pagan rituals where smoke carried prayers or wishes to the gods, right? So, this is something that people do, like, first of all, the idea of celebrating a birthday is kind of weird if you really think about it. But because it's a celebration of like ego, it's a celebration of the individual, right? And you're celebrating the day in which you came to this life, right? So it's a celebration of life as well. Okay, and then we get into the birthday candles, which is kind of like seeing a shooting star and making a wish. So you see the birthday candles, you make a wish and you blow them out. And this is interesting because I didn't know that the smoke carries that wish or the prayers to the gods, so then that can be answered, right? Now you can think, well, scientifically that doesn't make any sense because the smoke just evaporates, but we still do that. Like, just imagine a scientist doing that, right? Like, they still, why do they do that? It's still tradition, right? It's kind of interesting. Okay, number 2, wearing white at weddings. And I don't know if we have a couple of wedding ones, especially towards the end. But the wedding thing, like, for example, you can't see the bride in her dress before the wedding, right? In regards to the groom, because that's bad luck. Again, superstition, but it's still like very ritualistically practiced. Wearing white at weddings, the origin, in many cultures, white symbolizes purity and virginity. The modern Western tradition of brides wearing white stems from Queen Victoria's wedding, but echoes older symbolic practices. Today it's just what you do without much thought to the symbolism, right? So we could say these are like very ancient traditions, and then they were kind of like done by the elites or the rich people or the powerful people. And then eventually, like nowadays in our democratic government styles of running things, of organizing people, it's just what everybody does, right? The rich, the poor, whatever. Okay, number 3, covering your mouth when yawning. This one was also an interesting one, because if you think about the bless you when you sneeze, you don't say anything for someone when they cough, right? Or when they do other things, which are just like things people do. Like sneezing is just something people do, right? People sneeze once in a while, but you're forced to say bless you, or otherwise you seem rude, right? And this is embedded in that superstition of like health, right? So covering your mouth when you yawn, a person opens up their mouth, right? They yawn and then they cover it up. Why? Why do they cover it up? The origin, people used to believe that yawning opened the body to evil spirits, so covering the mouth was a protective gesture. Now it's just seen as polite, but retains its superstitious roots, right? So again, it doesn't make any sense. There's no practical implication unless you're close to somebody and you're like yawning in their face, but even then, covering your mouth is not enough. I mean, you can understand when people cough why they have to cover their mouth, because nobody wants spit on them or on their food or on their things, right? So if you cough, or nobody wants to get sick. But when you sneeze, and when you sneeze, you also have to cover your mouth, right? You sneeze and you cough and you have to cover your mouth. But you only say bless you when a person sneezes and not when they cough. And you could say, well, coughing also has a health related like element to it, right? A health characteristic to it, which could be, well, they're coughing, they could actually, that's like a very in the moment thing, because they could actually choke, right? Choke to death. So they actually have to get help in that moment, so if anything, it should make more sense to say bless you in that moment, right? Yeah, but all of these things, I guess, have to do with like wishing people good luck, like when something happens and they say thoughts and prayers, right? And then I ask myself, like, are they actually even praying about those people? And let's go further, down the road and ask, are you even praying? Like, are you even a person that prays? Like, I can understand that you're a religious person and you believe in God, but are you a person that prays, like every day? And if you don't, then why would you say thoughts and prayers? Or wishing people, like during the Christmas season, like, good luck or things like that. I can understand, like, socially it makes sense. You want to, emotionally it makes sense. It's like, yeah, like, I got you. It's more of like a moral thing, right? Like an emotional, sentimental thing. But logically it makes no sense, right? And it's actually, where emotion meets science, that it doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's where I would, and I'm all for that stuff, but I don't believe in this contradiction in society that where people want to appear very objective, very evidence and fact driven, like scientists, and then they believe in this stuff, right? So it's like, do you see the contradiction? Don't act all high and mighty, and don't say that you're a person that bases their ideas or their beliefs on science or on evidence or on facts, because you blow out candles when it's your birthday, and you say bless you when someone sneezes, and you expect someone to say bless you when you sneeze. So you're not basing yourself, you're not basing your ideologies on, or your beliefs on facts and evidence, right? So it's like, and it's okay if we're all like that. We all have a mythological bone, right? A symbolic bone, and that's okay. That's necessary. That's what gives meaning to things, right? I'm all for that, but I'm just pointing out these things, right? This contradiction. Okay, so so the yawning thing, the evil spirits, now it's just seen as polite. Okay, number 4, tossing coins into fountains. So this is kind of like blowing out candles on a cake, seeing a shooting star and making a wish. It's for good luck, right? See, there are these things that we do that may be for avoiding bad luck, or that actually generate bad luck, and some is for good luck, right? Like, for example, during New Year's, there's a bunch of rituals that people do, right? Like, you wear red, or if you want to travel, you have to like go out of the house and like walk around or run around with a suitcase, right? So okay, the tossing of coins into fountains, this practice comes from ancient pagan rituals. So again, with the pagans, which were actually the people that were stemming away from Christianity, like Orthodox Christianity, where people offered coins or trinkets to water deities in exchange for wishes or blessings. Today is just a fun tradition. So a lot of these things, like it says here, it's fun tradition, right? And we don't really do it for an objective thing, like Alan Watts said, dancing, singing, right? You don't do it to get to the end of the song, to get to the end of the dance, right? You do it to enjoy it, right? So it's just like a fun thing, right? But again, see how we have these traditions really embedded in us, and to actually stem away from them or break them or try doing other things, right, would just feel weird, right? Okay, 5th, the birthday song ritual. So when we sing happy birthday to someone when it's their birthday, right, singing to someone on their birthday and centering attention on them might have roots in ceremonies celebrating life cycles. So again, with the blowing out of the candles, akin to appeasing spirits to grant the person another year of health, right? So again, this is something like with the Aztecs, when they would give human sacrifices. So in this case, you get people together, and when you get people together, even if it's not based on scientific data, it's like the feeling, like you're with people, like when you go to church and everyone's there, or when everyone's praying together, right? And it's just a vibe. Again, it's a feeling, it's an emotion, right? Okay, 6, which I actually made a whole video on Christmas, on Christmas traditions, the Christmas tree tradition, right? Like, why do you put a tree in the house? I explained it in that video. But anyway, the origin, bringing evergreen trees inside during winter stems from pagan rituals. Again, this is kind of interesting because we see this as a very Christian thing, but it's actually pagan, just like Santa Claus, right? But a lot of Orthodox Christians do detect this, and they're like, yeah, Santa's like the devil and things like that, because it's not part of original Christianity, right? So anyway, these rituals celebrate the renewal of life, right? Like bringing in the Christmas tree, of life during the solstice, right? That change of the year, especially when winter's coming. Okay, and today is just a secular holiday practice. Okay, so I was also asking ChatGPT why we don't notice these things, and it says these behaviors have been normalized and their origins are forgotten or replaced with new cultural meanings. However, they still subtly connect us to the past, demonstrating how deeply ritualistic human nature can be, right? Okay, so the last four. This one was very interesting for me. Saying cheers before drinking, right? So that doesn't have any practical goals. You're not trying to achieve anything. It's not necessary, but it's something people do, right? To kind of like, again, like the feeling, like to bring people together, cheers, right? Like everyone's together. So origin, this tradition stems from ancient rituals where clinking glasses was thought to drive away evil spirits or ensure trust. Some believe mixing drinks this way prevented poisoning. So people would actually mix drinks, I guess, instead of just saying cheers and clinking glasses. Today we say cheers without even thinking about its superstitious roots. And nowadays, our modern ritual, it's considered impolite not to participate in a toast, even though there's no functional reason for it, right? So I thought that one was very interesting because alcohol has like a history, right? Like I was seeing that these South Latin American people were like blessing the alcohol before the Christmas parties. Again, because they say that like alcohol is a portal to like the evil spirits, right? And you know, it's kind of weird because they call them spirits. There's this whole AA thing with Carl Jung and spirits, and how you are actually looking for a spirit when you're drinking. So that's why people shouldn't drink, because that's why people that have their spirit don't drink, and people that don't look for it in spirits, in alcohol and booze. But also how it's a gateway to evil spirits, right? And you know, that makes sense, like when you get drunk and you get crazy, right? So people will do this, and I guess the clinking here was thought to drive away the evil spirits, right? And ensure the trust among the people, right? I don't know if they mixed drinks just to kind of make sure that none of the drinks were poisoned. Okay, now the last three have to do with weddings. Throwing rice at weddings. This originates, well, it used to be rice, now it's confetti. I'm not sure what it is now, but yeah, I guess confetti. Okay, excuse me. They do this at newlyweds, and it comes from ancient fertility ritual symbolizing prosperity and abundance for the couple. Oh, okay, so it's like food, right? So like originally it was rice. Now they don't throw rice because that's bad, but it used to be like, you know, symbolic for that. It's now just seen as a cute wedding tradition, but its origin was deeply rooted in superstition. Okay, did not know that one for throwing rice. Okay, but again, this is something that we just do, right? And it has no purpose. I mean, the rice just gets, someone has to pick that up, right? And now it's confetti, someone has to pick that up. I think I saw at a wedding blowing bubbles, right? Like soap bubbles. Okay, now the ninth one, which is the third one on this list, because these last four are like 1, 2, 3, 4. Cutting a cake at weddings. Okay, this one's interesting. The cutting of the cake by the bride and groom was originally a fertility ritual symbolizing the consummation of their marriage and the sharing of their future life together. Nowadays, it's just a ceremonial photo op at receptions. So I guess I'm not sure what relation there is with the birthday parties where they cut the cake, and the person whose birthday it is has to cut the cake, right? Because in this case, the people who are getting married have to cut the cake. So the people that whose birthday it is on their birthday, they need to cut the cake, right? So that would be interesting. If you know that, let me know in the comments. But again, another thing, like, it's the bride and the groom that have to cut the cake. It can't be somebody else, right? And the last one, wearing engagement rings. Oh, okay, right? Very ritualistic thing. Really doesn't serve any purpose besides, letting people know that you're married. The tradition of wearing a ring dates back to ancient Egypt or Rome, where circles symbolized eternity, and the ring finger was believed to contain a vein connected directly to the heart, the vena amoris. Nowadays, it's just seen as a sign of commitment, but the original symbolism is almost forgotten, okay? So again, yeah, you could have, I think about this, I'll go back to that idea of like a scientist or this person who's like very, it's like that atheist that is like, I don't believe in God, but yet they follow the calendar, right? And the calendar is based on Christianity, on the birth of Jesus, right? Of Jesus Christ. So, yeah, I thought I noticed these, I noticed, and I wanted to talk about some of these things. Well, the only thing I really did notice was the bless you thing, and I wanted more examples because I know there are a lot of contradiction, a lot of things that are contradiction. Now, contradiction is a basic human quality, right? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad to be full of contradictions or have contradictions or paradoxes or whatever. That's okay. Where I'm at, where I draw the line is when everyone has the same ones, right? So if everyone is like saying that science is the best and everyone's scientifically driven, right? Facts, data, and then everyone is, blowing out candles and saying bless you when people sneeze, that's where I'm like, hey, like everyone's doing this, like can't anybody, point this out and stop, so many of you stop doing that, like, or, if you're gonna have contradictions, have your own contradictions, right? Be your own person, right? And that's kind of where I'm always at with all this stuff. It's like, be your own person, have your own ideas, research your own things. Don't start, reading Jacob Greenberg, because you see on social media a bunch of stuff on him, right? Or Charles Bukowski, who's this like pseudo philosopher of our modern era, right? Don't start doing these things just because you're seeing them, all over the place. I mean, you can start off like that, but once you get into like a certain rabbit hole, just go down it. And it's going to be weird because you're going to be the only one doing it, but that's all right, right? Like, that's your own basis, that's your own ideas, those are your own criteria points. So that's ultimately what you need to do. And when you notice irregularities in people, contradictions in society, when you notice these things, speak them out too, like detect them. Don't act like that, because who the hell wants to be like all of you, who wants to be like the rest, right? So be your own person. I mean, I understand the safety in numbers idea, but yeah, I think it's better to just have your own ideas. So yeah, society's cool, culture's cool. There's a lot to say about it. I was recently thinking that I could make like videos where I talk about these things, like that people do, but I would have to really take note of them when they happen, because a lot of things just happen and I think about them at that time, but then I forget them. So in order to make them like into a video, right, I would have to write them down and like really study them, but I could do that too. But yeah, anyway, I thought I'd make this video letting you guys know this. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.